Dawn bled across the Platte River Valley as Rachel Monroe walked the northern fence line of the 1,000-acre wheat farm. She looked to any passing eye like a weather-toughened ranch wife in denim and flannel. The dog trotted at her heel, nose twitching in the crisp May air. Yet every 20 steps she paused, listening not for coyotes or stray cattle, but for engines idling beyond the cottonwoods. The third morning in a row, she caught the same scent, diesel exhaust mixed with cigarette smoke. Through the tree line, a matte black pickup waited, its occupants just silhouettes. Rachel noted the distance, 400 yards, filed the angle of sunrise, then continued her perimeter as if counting fence staples. The watchers saw what they expected, a middle-aged woman tending chores. They didn't see the micro-tilt of her shoulders, the way her boot prints zigzagged to mask stride length, or the faint smile that meant the wraith had confirmed her target. Inside the farmhouse, Luke Monroe poured coffee and scrolled headlines on a cracked tablet. When Rachel entered, dusting straw from her sleeves, he spoke without looking up. "Our visitors are back. Same truck?" "Same tires, deeper ruts," she answered, hanging her hat. "They're testing reaction times. Sheriff's cruiser rolled past 4 minutes after they left yesterday. That was on purpose." Luke met her eyes. After 12 years of marriage, he could read the conversation woven beneath the silence. "We could sign, Rach. Carlson's offer is more money than this dirt is worth." "It's not Carlson," she said softly. "It's whoever holds his leash." She pushed a mug toward him. "Iron Hand Brotherhood picked up 2 strips east of us last month. Add ours, and they control 5 contiguous miles of flatland, long enough for a clandestine runway." Luke exhaled. "If they come tonight?" "They will." A brief glimmer of cold certainty flickered behind her gentle expression. "And when they do, the wraith goes to work." The pickup returned at noon, this time escorted by 3 motorcycles bearing a rust-colored gauntlet emblem. The riders barred the gravel driveway like sentries. Rachel stepped onto the porch, wiping flour from her hands. The aroma of rising bread drifted behind her, a perfect domestic tableau. A man in tactical cargo pants climbed from the truck. He was built like a battering ram, beard trimmed with military precision, eyes hidden behind ballistic sunglasses. "Mrs. Monroe," he called, voice dipped in false civility. "Name's Burke. I consult for Plains Development Group. We're acquiring local parcels for an agri-logistics corridor. Your acreage is the keystone." "Not selling." She folded her arms. From the kitchen window, Luke watched, jaw tight. Burke smiled with a predator's patience. "My firm has authority to offer $2.5 million, cash, 30 days. Rachel shook her head. "This land has fed 3 generations. He stepped onto the first porch stair, letting her smell his cologne over the diesel. "Things change, ma'am. Smart people adapt. The stubborn end up displaced." One biker kicked over a clay planter for punctuation. She feigned a tremor. "I need time to talk to my husband." 18 hours. Burke handed her a laminated card. On its back was a gauntlet stamped in blood-red foil. "Midnight deadline. After that, we remove obstacles." They roared away, leaving dust curling like smoke. Rachel watched until the road lay empty, then flipped the card and scanned the microprint serial at its corner. Military stock number for RFID tags. A message unintentionally gifted. That evening, she drove the rusted Chevy into Buffalo Gap, parking outside the feed store. Inside, the clerk, 18, acne, iron hand prospect patch, half hidden under flannel, argued with owner Dottie Hartman. "Security fees doubled," the kid insisted. "Bad accidents happen to places that don't pay." Rachel's arrival interrupted them. She selected mineral blocks and calf feed, all the while mapping shelf rows, exits, the weight distribution of the would-be enforcer's stance. "I'll put these on my tab, Dottie," she said lightly, then addressed the prospect. "I heard the Brotherhood's got new leadership. Means greenhorns like you get the dirty jobs." The boy's bravado cracked. "Mind your business, lady." "My business is patterns, like the pistol in your waistband sitting too far forward. You'll break your pelvis if you fall." She made the comment clinically, almost kind. "Next time, shift it back 2 inches. He blanched. "Who are you?" "Someone who hates waste." She collected her receipt and walked out, leaving the prospect shaking. Back at the farm, sunset painted the wheat a molten gold. Rachel and Luke ate in near silence until he finally asked, "Plan?" "I let them take me." "No. It's the fastest route inside their command node." She outlined markers she'd already placed. Motion trigger cams in the south pasture, transmitters buried beneath the mailbox, a silent alarm tied to an encrypted sat phone. "Once I'm in, I map the network, tag their shipment, signal extraction." Luke stared at his calloused hands. "You promised the agency was behind us." "Director Valdez owes me? When I send the glyph, Task Force Sentinel rolls," she softened. "Trust the process. Trust me." He reached across the table and gripped her wrist. "Come back. Always." Night spread thick and moonless. 23:47, 13 minutes before Burke's deadline. Two vans without plates eased down the driveway. Rachel waited on the porch in slippers and a housecoat, the image of surrender. Masked men spilled out, carbines ready, infrared lasers twitching. She lifted her hands. I'll go quietly. Plasticuffs bit her wrists. A hood slid over her head. Diesel churned, and the vans rolled. Beneath the hood, her lips counted turns, speed changes, grade shifts. 54 minutes later, the convoy stopped. Echoes suggested a cavernous interior, maybe the abandoned grain elevator near Shadow Ridge Rail Spur. Perfect. They sat her on a metal chair, wrists bound behind, hood yanked off. Fluorescent glare revealed a makeshift command post, maps, satellite images, crates stenciled with Cyrillic letters. At the center, a rugged server rack blinked, uplink antennas humming, not just a land grab, data exfiltration route. Burke approached, rolling up his sleeves. Midnight delivery made, gentlemen. Asset acquired. Rachel faked a tremble. Please, Luke will sign. We already forged his signature. Burke triggered a projector, a land deed with Luke's name. Your farm becomes Iron Hand property at dawn, but your leverage against federal sniffing. He gestured to a man in a charcoal suit studying the server rack. Meet Colonel Yegor Kravtsov, late of Spetsnaz. He bankrolls this corridor. Wheat fields hide cargo planes nicely. Kravtsov's English was velvet smooth. Your soil will host something far more profitable than grain, Mrs. Monroe. Rachel let terror widen her eyes while she cataloged. 6 shooters, 2 technicians, 1 colonel, exits east and south, security loop cycling every 30 seconds. Good. Burke leaned close enough she smelled bourbon. Know what Iron Hand does to nosy women? She met his gaze, and the farmhouse softness gone. In its place, an abyssal calm that once froze warlords in Congolese jungles. Know what the Wraith does to men who threaten her home? Confusion creased his brow just as the first detonation severed the main power. Emergency lights flickered crimson. In the half-dark, Rachel snapped her cuffs, plastic, not steel, retrieved the ceramic shim taped under her sleeve, and flowed upward. One silent chop crushed Burke's trachea before he could shout. She palmed his sidearm and double-tapped the nearest gunman's center mass, non-lethal foam rounds she'd swapped into Burke's mag during the ride. Panic erupted. Rachel vault-kicked a folding table, sending monitors crashing into Kravtsov's technicians. Sparks danced. She grabbed a hard drive, slapped a beacon patch to its case, and rolled behind a crate as rounds chewed plywood. Outside, distant rotors beat the night, the sound of Task Force Sentinel helicopters inbound, drawn by the glyph transmission her mailbox transmitter had fired the moment power dropped. Kravtsov shouted Russian commands, trying to rally retreat. Rachel popped up, fired again, clipping his thigh. He fell, howling. Sirens wailed closer, county deputies lured by Luke's silent alarm. Rachel advanced like fog, disarming men with surgical economy. 4 lay incapacitated, 2 fled into maze-like silos, only to meet Sentinel operators fast roping through shattered skylights. In 6 minutes it was finished. Rachel stood amid sparking consoles, wheat husks swirling through broken windows, Kravtsov cuffed to a pipe, Burke gasping on the floor. She lifted a radio. Luke, it's done. Wheat's safe. Outside, red and blue strobes painted ripples across the golden fields. The Wraith exhaled, tasting the promise of dawn. Sunlight spilled through the shattered skylights, casting gold across the concrete floor where Colonel Kravtsov knelt, wrists zip-tied, eyes like broken glass. Task Force Sentinel operators fanned out, cataloging weapons and hard drives under Rachel's precise direction. The grain elevator smelled of gun oil and wheat dust, a scent she would remember long after today's reckoning. Major Evelyn Shaw, Sentinel's field commander, strode in, headset crackling. Wraith, nice fireworks, but we just tripped a bigger wire. Satellite intercepts show Iron Hand convoys vectoring toward the state line. They're hauling something marked Project Zephyr. Any idea? Rachel handed over the drive she'd bagged. Data suggests Zephyr is more than weapons. Kravtsov bragged about cargo planes. My bet, next-generation drone swarms nicked from DARPA trials. Shaw plugged the drive into a rugged tablet. Lines of Cyrillic scrolled, followed by schematics of modular pods shaped for quick attach under small aircraft wings. Payload, aerosol canisters. Rachel's throat tightened. Not drones, bioagents. Destination? Shaw asked. Where a westbound rail spur meets Highway 83, Rachel said, mapping from memory. Flat ground, decommissioned airstrip perfect for a sunset liftoff. Shaw keyed her radio. Sentinel to Eagle Flight. Redirect to Shadow Ridge Airfield. Intercept with extreme priority. Outside, Luke's pickup skidded up the dirt road. He leapt out, relief flashing when he saw Rachel upright, unbloodied. Heard the chatter on sheriff bands. What now? She squeezed his hand. Round 2. Iron Hand is evacuating with something that can poison half the Midwest. Luke's jaw set. Then we stopped them. Hours later, high clouds bruised the sky as 2 Black Hawks and Rachel's Chevy raced south. Sentinel scouts reported 3 semi-trailers flanked by armored pickups, moving 45 miles an hour, slow enough to protect fragile cargo. Rachel rode shotgun, laptop balanced on knees, decoding more of Kravtsov's files. Zephyr's release sequence requires dual-factor authorize, biometric thumbprint, and a 6-digit code randomized hourly from a secure satellite feed. "Whose thumb?" Shaw asked over comms. "Kravtsov's," and Burke memorized the codes. Burke lay sedated in the Hawk's medbay, throat bandaged. He'd live, but talking might require incentive. Rachel patched through. "Burke, your boss left you to die. Give me the current Zephyr code, and I'll put in a word at sentencing." A rasp, then his grudging reply, 984137. Shaw confirmed it against the intercepted feed. Match. "Good boy," Rachel said, closing channel. They crested a rise. Dust columns marked the convoy 3 miles ahead. Shaw's voice snapped across the net. "Eagle 1, disable lead and rear vehicles. Force them off pavement." Hellfire light streaked downward. Explosions blossomed, shredding asphalt and hemming the semis onto a service road toward the abandoned strip. Rachel's Chevy fishtailed to a stop behind a burned-out tractor shed. She and Luke dismounted, joining Sentinel's 6-woman assault team. The airfield ahead was a relic of Cold War training, cracked tarmac, rusted hangars, a single control tower now nesting Hawks. But parked on the runway was a sleek Antonov twin prop with iron hand mechanics fueling at frantic speed. "Clock's ticking," Shaw said, handing Rachel a suppressed SMG. "Objective, seize thumbprint device, neutralize Zephyr pods." Rachel inhaled, feeling the familiar cold focus slide over her bones. "On your mark." Sentinel advanced in bounding pairs, silent as wind. Rachel and Luke split left, weaving through sagebrush to flank the first semi. A distracted guard smoked beside the cab. Rachel's elbow collapsed his trachea. Luke dragged the body behind a wheel well. She popped the trailer seal. Rows of metallic spheres sat in shock foam nests, each blinking green. "Pressure sensors," she whispered into comms. "Can't jostle." She placed a tracker on the rack and backed out. Shaw's team breached the center truck, gunfire rattling dull against steel. The runway erupted into chaos, guards scrambling, the Antonov's engines roaring to life, prop wash whipping dust devils. Rachel sprinted toward the plane's cargo ramp where Kravtsov's second-in-command, a scarred woman named Vaska, brandished an Uzi. Rachel slid on gravel, firing a 3-round burst that shattered Vaska's kneecap. Vaska screamed, dropped, still clawing for her trigger. Luke finished it with a baton strike. Inside the fuselage, 2 mechanics rushed forward. Rachel barreled into the first, using his momentum to flip him out the open bay. The second froze long enough for Luke to zip-tie him. They reached the cockpit where the pilot was screaming in Russian, trying to taxi. Rachel shoved her SMG against his temple. "Engines off or brains out?" He complied. Shaw radioed, "Lead truck secure but pods armed. Need thumbprint." Rachel dragged the pilot to the runway, shoved his face onto her portable reader. Wrong print. She scanned Vaska. No match. "Kravtsov's still in custody," Shaw reminded. "Too far." Rachel scanned Burke. Match rejected. Panic surged. Maybe Kravtsov embedded a remote dead man trigger. She accessed the laptop, cross-checked metadata. A hidden line of code pinged. Secondary biometric fallback. Any blood relative within 2 degrees. Rachel's pulse spiked. She recalled a rumor in the files. Vaska. Maiden name, Kravtsova. "Sibling," she muttered. She knelt by the wounded woman, pressed the reader to her thumb. Beep. Access granted. A prompt asked for the current code. Rachel entered 984137. The pod indicator switched from green to amber, safe mode. "Zephyr disarmed," she announced. Cheers erupted over comms, but she wasn't done. She connected the tracker feed to Shaw. "Upload the schematics to Homeland Pathogen Center. We need full containment crews here." Sirens wailed in the distance. State troopers climbing gravel roads. Sentinel rounded up survivors. Luke supervised cuffing mechanics with a farmer's pragmatic grip. Dust settled. The valley lay silent except for the Antonov's cooling engines. Shaw approached Rachel. "We traced Kravtsov's bank trails. Iron Hand sold Zephyr for $50 million to a shell fronting an unknown corporate patron, but offshore transfers route back to an address in Zurich, Helios International." Rachel's breath hitched. Helios, a think tank rumored to launder black-budget tech for private warlords. "They've been quiet since the Baltic drone heist?" "Not anymore," Shaw said. "Director Valdez wants you in DC debrief tomorrow. He thinks Helios may have embedded sympathizers in Homeland Security." Luke overheard, stepped closer. "Meaning this doesn't end here?" Rachel met his gaze, saw the same mix of pride and dread she always did when the horizon darkened. Not until every shadow was burned off our land. Dusk painted the wheat fields amber as the convoy of captured semis rolled back under armed escort. Biohazmat teams set up decontamination tents. Sentinel operators logged evidence. Vasca was medevaced, screaming oaths that Helios would avenge her. Rachel walked the runway alone, letting adrenaline bleed away. She crouched, touched a crack in the pavement filled with rain-polished quartz. Once, this airstrip trained bomber crews who swore to defend a nation they could never fully comprehend. Now it had hosted smugglers ready to poison that same nation for profit. The wheel kept turning. Footsteps crunched. Shaw stopped beside her. "The agency will ask you back full time." "I suspected. Will you say yes?" Rachel watched a hawk circle where the control tower used to hum with radios. "I left the game to plant roots, but roots die if the soil gets salted. Maybe I stay part-time. Consultant." Shaw smiled. "The world's worst nightmare. An on-call wraith." A late-night wind carried wheat scent mixed with jet fuel. Luke joined them, slipped an arm around Rachel's shoulders. "Whatever you decide, the farm holds." "It will," she said, leaning into him, "because people like us refuse to surrender ground." Headlights approached, Sheriff Alvarez arriving with reporters in tow. Cameras would want a statement. Rachel sighed. Legend thrived on myth, but daylight demanded facts. She squared her shoulders and walked toward the lights. Before stepping into view, she whispered to Luke, "Tell the co-op we'll sow sunflower buffer rows this fall. Good for the soil and good cover if trouble comes again." He chuckled. "Always planning." "Always." Flashbulbs burst, capturing the so-called farmer's wife, whose calm eyes hinted at wars unspoken. Questions flew. Terror, plot foiled, foreign agents arrested. "Is Nebraska safe?" Rachel answered in measured tones, offering comfort and caution. Behind her, Shaw directed troopers. Sentinel loaded pods into lead-lined crates, and the captured Antonov was towed under guard. When the cameras finally dimmed, Rachel retreated to the pickup. She stared at the prairie horizon where the first stars awakened. Somewhere across oceans, Helios executives would realize their operation had failed because they'd overlooked a woman in worn boots walking a fence line. She sent a single-phrase text to Director Valdez. "Wolves at the threshold." Then she turned off the phone and let the Nebraska night surround her. A ghost, after all, is most effective when unseen, and Rachel Monroe, farmer, wife, legend, intended to keep it that way until the next shadow dared cross the golden wheat.